We're talking today with Rita Adams of Farmington Hills, Michigan, and the interviewer is James Smither of the Grand Valley State University Veterans History Project. Okay. Now, can you begin with some background on yourself, and to begin with, where and when were you born?
Well, I was born in Wheeling, West Virginia, and February 7, 1922.
1922, so you were 99 years old.
Right.
Not quite a record for me, but close. Okay. Now, did you grow up in Wheeling, or did you move around?
I spent my first 21st years in Wheeling.
Okay. Okay.
And
Now,
I went to school in Wheeling, Girls Academy in high school.
okay. Now, was that a private school or a public school?
It was a private school.
Okay. Now,
Paid to attend there.
right. Now, what
I
did
have a picture of that.
Okay. Okay. Now, what did your family do for a living when you were growing up?
We were very fortunate because this was during the Depression, and my father was in construction, so we had a comfortable enough home, and we lived in the city. It wasn't unusual to have a vagrant stop and ask for a meal in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
But my mother would serve him. They usually just came one at a time.
Right. Okay. Now,
And so then I grew up in Wheeling.
okay. Now, with your father's business, did he do a lot of government contracts or
No,
just private work?
No, it was just a work from the city.
Okay.
In the city, it was
Okay.
just a city.
Okay. But was he paid by the city of Wheeling, or was he paid by just private people? What kind of contractor was he? Yeah.
Did he just do people's homes, Mom?
Yeah, mostly.
Okay.
And some businesses
Right.
in Wheeling, but
Okay.
it was all in Wheeling.
Okay. All right. So even during the Depression, there was enough work for him.
Yeah,
Okay, so you got by pretty well. And how many kids were in your family?
there were 5.
And where were you in the
I
sequence?
was the 4th from the 5th.
Okay. All right. Now, when did you finish high school?
1940.
Okay. And then what did you do after you graduated from high school?
Well, it was very popular then. If you didn't go away to college, why, the girls often were employed with the telephone company.
Okay.
And so I was there for 2 years.
All right. And what were you doing for the telephone company?
Well, they called it representative. Service representative. You know, when you come in to pay your bill.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you were not an operator. You were somebody who kind of worked at a desk and
Yeah.
helped people.
Well, of course, we all started out with just being, a telephone operator. Where you plug in.
Oh, okay. So you learned how to do the telephone operator job.
Yeah.
Okay.
So after then, one day, I noticed this postcard, not postcard, but
Like an announcement or
big
poster.
Posting?
on that said Women Marine.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at it and I thought, now there's a uniform that I could wear every day. And the other, the wax and the
The waves,
slide
yeah.
and
Yeah.
the waves. never to really.
Okay.
You know,
All right. Now,
and I felt that I was probably doing something for the war effort just by being there and wheeling in the telephone company.
mhm.
But that really struck my eye, and so
Okay. Okay. Now, I'd like to back up the story a little bit. Before Pearl Harbor happened, were you paying any attention to the news and the war in Europe or things like that?
I don't think so.
Okay. How did you learn about Pearl Harbor?
Oh, well, everybody, you know, that was on a Sunday. And it was, you know, a very big happening.
Did you listen to the radio or just hear from other people?
We must have had it on the radio.
Okay.
I remember we were practicing Christmas hymns, and you know, it was the 7th of
December.
December. And yes, it was just, everybody was caught up in
Okay.
the
Right. Now,
bombing
right.
at Pearl Harbor.
Right. Now, once the war started, how did that affect life in your hometown? Was there rationing or things like that?
Everybody tried to do something for the war effort. Everybody was caught up in it, and well, as you probably know, the automotive kind of came to a standstill on the, you know, started making the planes and all that. We had like food stamps, I guess you would say,
Yeah.
and they were rationed, and everything was rationed, I would say.
Right. Now, because of your father's business, could he get more gasoline or anything else than other people?
I probably, but you know, I wasn't privy to that.
Okay. Now, after you finished high school, were you still living at home?
I was,
Okay. All right.
and I had no dependence. I was pretty free.
Mhm.
I wasn't engaged or anything like that. So I was really very free to, you know, to leave.
Mhm.
And of course, I had to get it by my mother and my dad.
Now, what did they think of the idea of your joining?
Mother was always open for us to improve ourselves. But my dad, you know, that was a little bit different because he said, "What does your mother think?" You know, and so I had to get it past him, and I said, "Well, Dad, you know, we'll be supervised, and you know." So in that year, my dad, we had two brothers. Dad seemed to cater to the boys,
Mhm.
and mother to the girls, or
Okay.
3 girls. So anyway, I got the permission from both of them that okay, I could try out.
Okay.
So I went to Wheeling the enrollment, but they didn't have an enrollment for women Marines in Wheeling, so we had to go to Pittsburgh, which was 50 miles away. So there was one other girl, and who was about to go, who was enlisting. So her dad volunteered to take us, the two of us, to Wheeling, or to Pittsburgh. And so he knew his way around Pittsburgh pretty well. We went to the Marine enrollment, and he walked in and he said, "These two girls want to be Marines." So we enlisted that day, and then we were like on call for a month or two until we were
Okay.
notified, and so then we.
All right. Now, when did you originally sign up? What year was that?
And I do have it on my record there in April, like April 14, 1941.
Or 43? The record says 43. 41 was before Pearl Harbor.
Yeah,
So,
it wasn't 41. It was, well,
was it?
It'd been, let's see,
Well,
I signed up in 43.
yes. Okay. So we have that. That's what the record says. So we're good. So April of 43, you sign up, and then
And
did you
then-
go home then and wait for them to contact you?
Exactly.
Okay.
And I was notified in, I think it was June,
Okay.
and then we went to well, I think we went once more to Pittsburgh.
Maybe Pittsburgh. Yeah.
See that we were still in civilian clothes. And from there, then we went to, we were notified to go to Hunter College in New York City.
Okay.
So we were on a Pullman,
Because you took a train. Yeah.
and we were met in New York by a woman Marine officer, and then from there we went to Hunter College for I think it was 6 weeks.
Okay. So you're in boot camp now. That's
Basic.
yeah.
Right.
Okay. So what was that training like? What happened to you at Hunter College?
We learned to march. We marched in the rain or whatever. There were men who were the callers,
Mm-hmm.
and they taught us to march. Then we also were screened at that time, and we were fitted with uniforms. I would say we were beginning to feel like we were Marines.
Okay. Now,
So everybody was assigned, and I was assigned to Marine headquarters in Arlington.
okay. Let's talk a little bit more about that time at Hunter College. Now, when men train as Marines, there is a lot of emphasis on discipline, following orders, punishing people who don't do it. How much of that did you get? Were they teaching you to follow orders?
That was very important and a very important part of our training, the discipline,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So I think the one thing that I missed most was the privacy. You know, if you wanted to cry or if you had to cry, we just didn't have privacy.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway.
Now, were you all in an open barracks?
At Hunter College, we were just in dorm
Rooms, okay.
Yeah, when we left Hunter College, I think it was very new places to bear us. And there were, I don't know, I would say maybe a lot of this people who were working in civil service.
Mm-hmm.
They had a long row of rooms,
Mm-hmm.
and we were billeted there. And then as that opened up, and we would be transferred by trucks, marine trucks, to the city in Washington.
Mm-hmm. So were
To
you?
headquarters.
Okay.
Wasn't that? We were in Arlington, or we were in sometimes we were in Maryland, and would be transferred to wherever we were assigned, and I was at Marine headquarters, and that's just like right across from the Arlington Cemetery, really.
Okay.
You know, it's up on a hill.
All right.
So there I assigned the Marines, the male Marines, to their duty on night. And one other paperwork that we it was, I think, just, signing the men on their duties.
So you were in charge of just
Yeah.
keeping track of duty assignments and who is supposed to be where. So you were just in
I
an
worked in an office.
right. Okay.
And that was my job.
Okay. Now in that office, who else was in the office with you?
Probably 3 other Marine women.
Mm-hmm.
And then the management was all male Marines.
Okay. Now were they sergeants or officers or?
Well, what is the term for? They're almost an officer, but
Yeah. Well, there's a warrant officer.
that's it.
Okay, there you go. See, she knows her stuff. All right.
Yeah, he was our,
He's your supervisor?
the supervisor.
Okay. Now, how did the male Marines there treat you?
Usually they were very good. Of course, they organized the women to release more men.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so we took over. But on the whole, I didn't encounter any, you know, resentment
Mm-hmm.
that women, in fact, I think they were so glad to have women around, you know, because, you know, it got pretty boring,
Mm-hmm.
and they were probably, you know, not signed for a very long time, and then they did out, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So everything was a very short relationship.
Okay. So a lot of these men that you're dealing with come in for a short period of time and then are transferred out somewhere else. And a lot of them were new to the service, or they'd just gotten in and they just left home, and
Yeah.
you're a nice person who can talk to them.
And I remember one incident, the people like myself, the women Marines that were in very early in the organization, we would have the opportunity to go out on the subsistence, and many people in Washington, D.C. were eager to make some money,
Mm-hmm.
rent out a room for 4 girls or something
Okay.
like that. And so we, before the barracks were finished in Henderson, that's where the barracks were, we would have the opportunity to maybe go into a subsistence, what they call subsistence.
So you're renting a room in a private home or apartment building or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And did you do that?
Yes, we did that from time to time. When they got, we first, as you saw, maybe unloading our luggage,
Mm-hmm.
and they would transfer us to a home,
Okay.
and maybe there'd be 4, you know, living in this home, and we would be able to come to the barracks that were accommodating some of the people who enlisted later on, you know.
Right.
But there weren't quite enough barracks yet for all the women Marine in
Okay.
Washington. So, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
we had the opportunity of going to other places.
Now, when you lived off base, did you live in Arlington or in Washington, or where were you?
Most of them were in Washington,
Okay.
and before we went to Washington, we were in, as I mentioned, Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
They had a lot of places, which I imagine were built for the you know, the people who work
Mm-hmm.
in what am I trying to say? That worked in Social Security.
Okay. All right. Now, when you're based at Arlington and you have your job and you're going in, did you have a lot of free time in the evenings? I mean, did you just work a day job or a night shift, or what did you have?
Yeah, well, we were all on a limited, I think it was 9 o'clock at night, I think, was
Was that a curfew? You had to be in by 9?
curfew, yeah.
Okay.
So we had to be off the streets at that time. But there were USO clubs and things to see other than like the museums and so on.
Okay. But when you were living off the base, did you still have to be inside by 9, or did you have more freedom?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Because they had, you know, security
Okay.
on the streets, you know. What did they call them?
Could be military police or
Yeah,
Navy shore patrols and things like that.
military police.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
And so, yes, everything was supervised.
Okay. Now, how long were you at Arlington?
In Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
19 months.
Okay.
And then I volunteered when they opened up Honolulu or Pearl Harbor. I volunteered to go.
Okay.
It was all a volunteer.
All right. Now, before we get there, when you think about the time that you spent in Washington and that area, are there particular things that happened that stand out for you, or people or events that you remember?
Well, we were in Washington. There were a lot of important people coming into the city. Every time that happened, and every holiday, it would be a big march. Which was really a lot of the time that we did, because, I shouldn't say a lot of the time, but those were things that I think they wanted to impress on people coming in, and so we did a lot of marching.
Okay. So they had the women Marines marching in parades or welcoming
Parades,
people.
right.
Yeah, parades. Okay.
Yeah. Other than that, I was working in an office and had the opportunity to go to the barracks for our mess hall. And so it was just pretty much day to day when we would be when we were living out of the barracks, or I should say, when we were transferred then to the barracks, and we would be transferred in a Marine truck into the city. So Arlington is very close to
Right.
Washington, D.C., so,
Okay. All right. Now, when you went to the mess hall, for instance, were you there with the men as well and everyone
No,
together?
it was all women.
Okay. So they kept you apart so that.
Oh, yeah. We were not, they had their own, they were from Quantico.
But you had that experience where one of the women Marines had a brother that was
In Annapolis.
Okay.
right.
All right. Okay. So you made a trip to Annapolis. So
Yeah.
tell us about that.
Well, it was just like an overnight. So I don't know how we were transferred. It must have been on a bus. And it cost, we had to pay for the transportation. And this one girl who was going with us, she could not come up with the money. And then we said, well, you know, just get in touch with your parents. She was from Portland, Oregon. And she said, well, I never asked them for anything. But anyway, we encouraged her, and she did. And I said, well, what do your parents do? She said, they're both attorneys. And she was afraid to even ask for probably $20, you know. So anyway, they sent the money. And so, yes, so we just toured the Annapolis, and all the men that we joined up with were all officers, ensigns probably. And we were all enlisted. And that didn't sit very well with the people in Annapolis. You know, they said, well, you really should, you know, cater to the
Officers?
officers.
Yeah. Well, they did not want officers and enlisted fraternizing. You should not do that.
However, that was, the women were all enlisted and the men were all officers. So we just toured the place, and I can't remember any great meals or anything. We, you know, some way or another, it's been a long time ago, you
Yeah.
know. So all I remember is we had a great time.
Okay. Now, when you're on the base back in Arlington or in Washington, were there rules about personal relationships? I mean, were you allowed to date any of the men?
Yeah. And most of the time, you know, most of the time it was enlisted people,
Right.
but that's not to say that there weren't a lot of officers with enlisted women, you know.
But there was not a problem with enlisted men and enlisted
No,
women
no.
going out or whatever?
No, but in a private school like Annapolis, you know, why they probably,
Yeah. Well, that was a little different because that's the military academy, so
yeah.
they're a little different there. But on your base for the regular personnel, there was not a problem.
Right.
Okay. All right. Now, during that 19 months you're in Washington, did you ever go back home, or did you just?
Oh, yes, we had liberty.
Okay.
And most of the time, we were able to get home for Christmas. Thanksgiving, maybe.
Okay. Now, did you have any brothers in the service?
Yes, I had two.
And what did your brothers do?
My one brother was in the radio, and he was, you know, they had a select service, I think, which was even before Pearl Harbor, and they would be, you know, their name would be called, and they would select.
Right. Well, like drafted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was in radio at that time. My other brother,
Mom, was that Bill?
yeah,
Bill. And so the other one was Dan.
and he was married and had a child, so he you know, didn't touch those people until long, maybe 44.
Yeah.
You know, and so he went right into the infantry, and he went overseas
Did he go to Europe or to the Pacific, or where did he go?
Alsace,
Okay, so France,
Right.
yeah.
and I can't. I would have to. I would have to.
Okay, but he was in the European theater. So.
Oh,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah, okay.
I was in Washington when my one brother was going through to go overseas.
Mhm.
So that was nice. We met, he with a buddy and me with a friend, girlfriend. And, we sat around and didn't do much just until his train was
Right.
up. But that was, it was good to see him before he left,
Right.
But they both got through the army,
Mhm.
and they were both in the army.
Okay.
And also the one boy one brother that was in radio, he too went overseas about the same time. So he was stateside quite a while, and then he went over, and they both survived the war.
Very good. Okay.
But my one brother said he felt his time was near losing his life in
Okay.
some way because he saw so many. He saw so many die, or her sister's ship. He saw go down.
Okay, so he was in a convoy going across the Atlantic and another ship sank? Okay.
And just to see your friends, it was pretty.
Yeah.
So he felt his time would be.
Well, if he was in the infantry late in the war, there was a lot of hard fighting in northeastern France and then even going into Germany. So the area he was in was hotly contested in 44 into early 45. So
Right.
he might have seen a lot
Yeah.
there. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So anyway, when I guess I can say that we now prepared to go to Pearl Harbor,
Right.
to Honolulu.
Okay. So how did they get you to Pearl Harbor?
How did we get there?
Yeah.
Oh, on the ship, 5 days. I went on the Madonna, which was an old luxury liner.
Mm-hmm.
5 days, sick the whole time. And, but when we disembarked, it was, the highlight of my career, you might say, because I was able to walk off the ship, and we were greeted 300 sailors, and everybody welcomed us, and they had built a barracks, our barracks were ready for us.
Now, was that right there by Pearl Harbor or around that
It was
area?
on Pearl Harbor.
Okay.
And then at first I was assigned to the post office, which was right on Pearl Harbor.
Mhm.
But that was in, 44, and you could still see the smoke. But I didn't get near the Atlantic.
Well, the Arizona?
Arizona.
Yeah. 'Cause that was the ship that blew up, and part of it was still sticking up. Yeah. Now, were you the first women Marines there?
not the first, but probably the third group.
Okay. And about how many women Marines were at that base, do you think?
At the base.
Yeah.
I wouldn't venture to say.
Do you know how many women Marines came out in your group? When you landed, how many of you were there?
Yeah, I'm trying to think about how many were on the ship, you know, going over. I will backtrack there and say, from Washington, we went to San Diego to train
Okay.
for 6 weeks.
So what kind of training did you get in San Diego?
Well, we had to make sure we knew how to swim.
Okay.
We exercised. And that's, you know, a real base for the Marines, for the male Marines.
Right.
So then from there, it's always a time when you have to just sit and wait for the right time to go. And so we mailed, we left from there, from some, it wasn't San Francisco because we came back from San Francisco.
Right.
So it was, I don't know.
Probably out of San Diego or Long Beach
Probably.
or someplace, yeah.
Someplace near San Diego, you know, that we, and as I said, 5 days on the ship.
Okay.
And so then we were assigned, as I say, and lived in the barracks, double deck barracks, and we had to, you know, have our night, you know, 2 to 4. You had to have your. You probably can tell me the terms of these things, and it's hard for me to pull it all
So
up.
you're talking about bed checks, or you have to be in bed by a certain time?
Well, and you were always assigned, just
Okay.
like I was
Mm-hmm.
assigning people in
Right.
Washington.
Okay.
All over there, I was being assigned.
Okay.
And you had to, you know, peruse, go through all these barracks, and, you know, you usually on a 2-hour shift.
Okay.
And mine always seemed to be 2 to 4, you know. I was kind of hesitant to, you know, I wasn't too brave about walking up and down these corridors and, you know, hear all these.
So it was 2 a.m. 2 in the morning?
Okay. So you're
Yeah,
basically
so-
making sure everyone else is where they're supposed to be.
Exactly.
And nothing funny is happening in the barracks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so sometimes I would, you know, encourage someone to go with me, which was crazy. But anyway, I was, you know, you hear all these funny sounds at night, you know, and one of the things I do remember was the night before we. Are you looking at something?
Though I just saw somebody walking around out front.
Oh,
That's
okay. The night before we left, everybody was bedded down, and they would hear this voice in the darkness, preparing us for what we were to encounter overseas and what we might encounter. And it was such a wonderful talk to prepare us, you know. I think that was maybe the one time that I thought this could be really scary, you know. And before that, maybe I thought, well, it was just an adventure to go over to Honolulu. You know? But she pointed out how important this particular venture was. So, but anyway, I was over in Honolulu. That was the city.
Yeah.
And Pearl Harbor was where the post office was. So I was just over there for 7 months until the war ended.
Right. Okay. Now, while you were there, could you get liberty and go to the beach and go into town and?
We had liberty, yeah. You had to apply for it, you had to, you know, pass. And you had to present that wherever you were,
Okay.
wherever you went, and you had time limit.
When you went off the base, did you wear your uniform or did you get to wear civilian?
We could wear civilian.
Okay. All right.
And
Now,
it was a great time to do it too, you know, just to pretend like you weren't, you were a civilian.
Right.
But there were a lot of people over there who lived over there, you know, and they would invite us for parties and, you know, and it just so happened that I had a distant cousin who was a chaplain. And so he had a lot of contacts. And so there were, I think, just more or less that there were a lot of opportunities maybe to meet other people, to meet some of the people who live there.
right.
And this chaplain took me to a place like a convent of nuns. And I think now, I wish I had a picture of them. But anyway, and being over in Pearl Harbor, they did give us opportunities to visit Diamond Head and, you know, a lot of the
Tourist places.
absolutely. So I know it's been hard for me to pull up this thing at 99,
Yeah.
you know, but so I just hope you've been.
Okay. Now, did you meet your husband in Hawaii?
Yes, at a friend of his, he was in the Army, and a friend of his was to marry a woman Marine. So I was invited by her, and my husband was invited by the male, the groom. And it was in a, you know, little church. And then we had a little reception after. And when I met my husband at the reception, we just kind of took to each other,
Mm-hmm.
and he managed to, I don't know how he did it, but we were all transported by truck, except the officers would have a Jeep. And so he took one of the Jeeps afterwards and took me back to the back barracks. And he was up for what do they call it? You know, when you have to report for being like AOL or something.
Oh,
like
yeah,
that,
yeah,
you know.
so he's...
They said the officer
Mm-hmm.
called him up and said he had to explain. And, but anyway, that was in June, and then the war ended in,
August. August?
yeah, about August
Now,
15th.
now, what branch of the service was your husband in?
He was in intelligence.
Okay, was he in the Army?
Army.
Army, yeah, okay. All right, and he was an enlisted man.
He was,
Okay,
yeah.
that's why he got in trouble for taking the Jeep,
So that
right,
was-
yeah.
Yeah, but this distant cousin of mine who was a chaplain, you know, he was just so eager for us to get married over there. And I just didn't know where I really was in love with this man, but I didn't know whether I really wanted. There were other things in the world that I thought maybe I might like to do, you know, and the service was the Marine Corps. Well, all the services were very generous with education and
Mm-hmm.
GI Bill and all that, you know. So I don't know whether I would have agreed to get married at that time or not, but as it happened, the war ended, and my husband had been in the service for 4 years, so he was one of the first to be discharged.
Mhm.
And he came back, I think, in September, and I came back in November.
Yeah, yeah.
On another ship, the Solace. That was a hospital ship. And I was only sick for 2 or 3 days because they had some, I don't know, saline solution or something to get me on my feet. And so I kind of enjoyed the
You got a good ocean voyage this time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, where was your husband from?
Michigan, but
Okay.
Wyandotte.
Wyandotte.
All right. All right. Now, were you writing to each other or stayed in communication?
Yeah, I guess we had planned to get married,
Okay.
and which we did. I came back in November, and we were married in November, last part of
Okay.
November. So then it was a whole different.
Yeah. All right. Well, what kinds of things did you, after you got out of the military, you got married. Now, did you take a job after that, or what did you do?
For 9 months, my husband worked for the Veterans Affairs
Okay.
in Wyandotte, and I learned how to cook. I think he was tired of poached eggs in the winter and strawberries and ice cream in the summertime. So he presented me with a couple Good Housekeeping books. And so, but I still wanted to do something more.
Mm-hmm.
Take advantage of the opportunities that was offered. Well, he wasn't open to a 4-year college, so we settled for 2 years of business college in Detroit. I don't know whether you're familiar with downtown Detroit, where it was in the Fuel building.
Okay.
So we graduated from there, business, bookkeeping, typing, shorthand. I don't think the shorthand is, people don't even know.
They don't learn shorthand anymore, not too
Craig,
often.
Craig shorthand.
Yeah.
And, you know, men had secretaries. Now the men have their own computers and do it themselves, you know. But anyway, my husband then, as we graduated, he went with Ford, I went with GM. And so that, I don't think he was very comfortable that we were separated by the different automotive companies. I thought maybe I should be, you know, where he was in Ford. But anyway, that worked out fine, and I was in GM overseas. That was my, and I was doing secretarial work. But, you know, I don't know whether you want to.
Well, I'm just curious. Did you continue to work after you had children, or did you leave when you started to have kids?
When after we were married about 4 or 5 years, I thought, yeah, it's time, you know, we should. Yeah. And in that time, we had gone to business college, and I had worked a couple of years.
Right.
And so I stopped working, and we had 3 children. And then I thought, oh, I want to go back to school or something. As soon as that first one is able to stay home by herself, if she had a cold, you know. So then I started, Madonna College was, you know, their city we were living in. We were living in Livonia at that time. So I went and I talked to these nuns, and I said, I don't think I'm going to have any more children. And I wanted her to say, well, I'm here, that's fine, and all that. And so I said, I just thought maybe I would like to get a little more education. And she said, well, what would you like to do? And I said, everything I could think of. I said, home ec, you know. And she said, well, we'll start with history and English, you know. So I did part-time those 2 subjects. And then from then I went to, we had I think it was maybe the city, or I don't know who it was that offered this occupational therapy assistant. Excuse me. Yeah. I thought that sounds like what I would really like to do. When it was only a 1-year course, and then you could be certified as an assistant.
Now we're going to pause right here because this tape is about up, and I'm going to rewind and reload. All right. Now we were talking about the education you got after you had kids, and you went into occupational therapy. So you did a 1-year program for that, and then did you get a job in that field?
I got a job with in physical ed with the VA hospital.
Okay.
That was in Allen Park at that time. And I worked, and I have some pictures of that. I have, let's see. From there, I think I was there 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went back to school. That occupational therapy course was given at Schoolcraft College.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first year that they had
That program?
that program, yeah. And there was our tutor was from Wayne State. She came in. She's very good, registered,
Nurse.
occupational
Therapist. Okay.
But anyway, so after that, then I went back to Schoolcraft, and I just got another degree in general studies.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Well, did you continue to work? Did you go back to work again?
no, I think for a while I went to Schoolcraft.
Right.
And then we had a right to read program, and I went through that at Madonna. And then, I can...
You did some substitute teaching?
Oh, well then, when I did get through I graduated from Madonna College with a degree. And then I did substitute teaching. I thought, I was like 54 years old then, and I certainly didn't want to take on a class, full time.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember the first time I went in to have the,
The first time you were a substitute?
yeah, and so after that day, after the teacher wanted me to come back, the next day, and I said, I don't think they like me there. And she said, oh, that's the way they always act. So then I made the adjustment, and I did substitute teaching for quite a while.
Okay. And where were you doing that? Which towns?
Where
Where were you substitute teaching?
just in Livonia.
Okay. Now, were you doing high school or elementary?
It was one of those from kindergarten through high school.
Oh, okay, all in one school?
Yeah,
All right.
so I could have the advantage of it all. Then the substitute teaching kind of dwindled. Maybe, I don't know why, but there was, some people dropped out. There wasn't that need.
Mhm.
And so then I went into recreation therapy,
Okay.
that type of thing with some of the some of the older, what am I saying? Where they have occupational and also exercise.
Right.
Different
Where was that, Mom, with the VA?
activities. Now, in several different
Yeah, with hospitals or?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so you did a lot of different things after you got out of the
well,
military.
I did, and then for hobby, I had always, as a kid, little girls always were encouraged to take piano, So I did a little of that, and after all these other things, I decided to play piano. You just had to keep practicing all the time. So I took up keyboard, and I really enjoyed that, and I could make music sound pretty nice. But anyway, that was then things started to go. My eyes, I couldn't see as well as I used to be able to. So.
All right. Well, to think back to the time that you spent in the Marine Corps, what do you think you learned from that experience, or how did that affect you?
What did I learn about it?
Well, from being in the Marines, yeah.
For being, just as I wrote here, and it was, this is what I learned, I think.
Do you want to read it?
that,
Do you
I
want?
did.
Go ahead.
It says, Mom said her memorable experience was being involved in World War II as a member of the Marine Corps was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Learning about discipline and how to carry out orders were very much a part of our day. During my 2.5 years of service, most of which were spent in the clerical field, I was assigned to Arlington, Virginia, and Hawaii. Out of this wartime experience came lasting friendships, the most significant of which was meeting my husband in Hawaii.
Okay. And then, while we were off camera here, you also mentioned that at least one of your friends from Arlington kept in touch with you and gave you a wedding present, or what was that story?
About the,
Mitchell,
yeah,
what was your question?
Well, I just wanted you to tell us about how she found you, or how you...
tell the story about the wedding gift.
Oh, the wedding gift.
Yeah.
What was her name?
Betty Mitchell. And she was in Baltimore. Had horses. And so she was going from coast to coast to visit her former Marines. And I think our stop in downtown Detroit was probably her first. So she was there for overnight, and we took her to the Statler and had another boy. She wasn't married, so we got her, one of our friends, so the four of us, had a lovely evening at the Statler Hotel. And then when she left, yes, she said, "Don't you have any china?" And I said, "No, we were just married like that. Married in the uniform, as a matter of fact." So then she sent these Audubon plates with the Audubon birds on them. And Amy has those.
They have seen many a family dinner.
All right.
So that was, but if you look in that envelope that has
What did you want to see?
well, I just wanted to.
There you are. Let's see. That is a graduation picture. Now, do you have the larger portrait picture of her in uniform?
Yeah.
Can we pull that one? Because I can just...
The picture of you in uniform, Mom? This one?
That first one there, yeah. That one.
And then do you have that picture of you and Dad? I'll get that.
And that is her in her flashy Marine Corps uniform. All right.
And when I was discharged, I was sergeant.
Sergeant, yes. You've only got your one stripe on that picture, but you got three. Okay. And
Wedding.
the wedding picture. All right. Now, let's see. That one there. There we go. Now, one miscellaneous question while I think of it. Did the Marine Corps have limits on how long your hair could be? Did they make women cut their hair or just...
Yeah, I think it had to be above the shoulder. But they were very strict at first. What the women wore and the hat was designed by, I wish I could tell you the name, not something like the Knox, or, isn't there?
But by a fashion designer or
Well, they really had a nice uniform. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, all of this makes for a very good story, so I'm just going to close here and thank you for taking the time to share it today.
Well, I thank you for spending the time and coming.